Hey guys, picture this. Your alarm goes off like a tiny war drum. You slam the snooze button, and the world suddenly morphs into a sluggish watercolor of dimmed curtains, stale coffee steam, and the faint perfume of yesterday's laundry. Sounds like a nightmare, right before we drift any further. Smash that like button if you love turning ordinary mornings into mini epics, and drop a comment telling me the weirdest thing you've ever done at 2 a.m. I'll read every haunted confession. Now dim the lights, maybe wrap a blanket around your shoulders, and let your eyes half close as we slip into the gentle gray between day and dream. You hear the ceiling fan's lazy sigh, feel the cool bite of the night seeping through the window crack, and wonder why your brain decides to replay that embarrassing Zoom glitch like a broken record. Do I really have time for a nap? You mutter, and the answer flashes. Yes, but only if you promise not to set the kitchen on fire while you're at it. So stick with me, and let's wander through those ordinary seconds that hide the softest, most mischievous dreams you never knew you were dreaming. As darkness descended, they set up camp, their modest fire crackling against the enveloping night, casting a warm glow that flickered like the pulsing heart of the veil. With marshmallows skewered on improvised sticks, they shared stories. They were adventurers, yes, but they were also dreamers, tethered by the vibrant magic of the world around them. The flame's light danced across their faces, illuminating the hope of finding the sacred ruins hidden in these untamed wilds. Alara's heart raced with the thrill of impending discovery, while Rowan, poking at the fire with an inquisitive stick, mused, if we find those old monks, maybe they can help us sort out our Spotify playlists too. They fell into fits of laughter, delighting in the camaraderie that bound them on this bewildering journey, where echoes of the past stirred in the shadows, waiting to unveil their secrets to those brave enough to inquiry ahead. In the heart of Eldernook, where the river meandered like a carefree child, stood the ancient willows, their trunks twisted like the stories of old folks who shared them. Beneath these regal sentinels of green, Leela and Oliver frolicked, each day a playful skirmish against the backdrop of their bright imaginations. The laughter of these two friends rang out like melodious chimes on a sunny day, their voices weaving through the branches that whispered age-old secrets. They chased dragonflies painted in shimmering hues, their laughter punctuated by the occasional splat of mud, or the rustle of small creatures startled by joyous antics. This village was a world unto itself, where time seemed to span as wide as the river, unburdened by the ticking clock or the looming shadows of autumn's approach. As the days lengthened and the sun hung lazily in the sky, summer began to wane, ushering in the bittersweet melodies of autumn. The air turned brisk, carrying scents of decaying leaves, and the sweet, toasted aroma of campfires, good enough to float on clouds of nostalgia. Leela, with her wild mane of hair and a laugh like ringing bells, would often challenge Oliver. "Bet you can't catch me before the leaves fall." He would sprint off, his feet kicking up a raucous symphony of fallen acorns as the duo danced around the willows, oblivious to the creeping chill. Yet, as the shadows stretched longer and the sun dipped below the horizon, the duo often paused, noticing how the golden light turned into a muted, sleepy blush, as if nature herself was sighing with contentment as twilight approached. Yet, amid the carefree laughter, a whisper echoed louder through the willows, an almost palpable murmur forecasting the inevitable changes that autumn would bring. Leela had started to collect acorns, determined to create her very own nature museum, while Oliver dreamed of launching a catapult to send him straight into the realm of superheroes known for their adventures. But those dreams, though as sweet as freshly baked pie, were tinged with the bittersweet realization that time wasn't standing still. As the leaves turned fiery shades of orange and crimson, a pang of something akin to disquiet nudged at their carefree spirits. It seemed as if the willows themselves were trying to settle a score, their branches swaying as if to remind the friends that change is as natural as the wind rustling through their leaves. One such lazy afternoon, as they sprawled amongst the roots of their treasured willows, Oliver voiced a thought that hung heavily in the air. "What if we grow up one day?" he mused, poking at a stray clump of dirt, as if trying to unearth the very essence of childhood itself. Leela burst into fits of laughter, her eyes twinkling like the stars yet to appear in the twilight sky. "Grow up? Nah, we'll just be older versions of ourselves, chasing after dreams that sparkle like those fireflies in early summer," she retorted, waving a mocking finger as if scolding the irresistible tide of time. Still, with every giggle shared, a soft cloud of uncertainty brushed the edges of their hearts, hinting that the innocence of childhood was a fleeting moment, a bubble waiting to be pricked by the sharpness of reality. And so, as dusk settled, casting a lavender haze over the fields of Eldernook, Leela and Oliver continued to defy the inevitable. They conjured images of future adventures, a life where they fought imaginary dragons or discovered hidden kingdoms just beyond the bend of the river. But unbeknownst to them, the willows, the very essence of their sanctuary, stood witness to the quiet transformation, their branches catching the last light of the day. In the small village, where time seemed to drift like the gentle waters of the river, the onset of autumn whispered with magic and foreboding. Perhaps, just perhaps, their ordinary days would take a turn, and gentle dreams would evolve as crumpled leaves underfoot, leading them gently away from the familiar laughter that shaped their youthful skies. as the last golden rays of summer dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. Leela felt the bittersweet weight of change settle on her heart like a heavy backpack filled with bricks. The air was thick with the scent of ripening apples and the ever-approaching autumn chill, sending a shiver down her spine. Her family's decision to move to the bustling town of Windermere, a cacophony of car horns and lively chatter, seemed like a distant drum roll announcing a long-forgotten parade. At 11 years old, Leela was teetering on the precipice of childhood and adolescence, caught between the thrilling anticipation of adventure and the suffocating sorrow of leaving behind her best friend, Oliver. As if orchestrating their emotional symphony, the afternoon breeze tousled her hair, whispering secrets only the trees could understand, urging her to embrace this upheaval. Oliver stood at the edge of the willow grove, the leafy sentinels of their friendship swaying gently, as if sharing the news with one another. He gazed at the towering trees with a dreary look, their long, cascading branches engulfing him like the embrace of a sad puppy left at the shelter. All hope, no home. Leela could almost see the weight of impending loss reflected in his big brown eyes, which were normally twinkling with mischief. Returning to their fort, an unlikely sanctuary patched together from battered old sheets and broken dreams, seemed dismal now, like choosing to binge-watch a series that had already lost its plot. Memories of laughter danced on the cool gusts, but the specter of change loomed over them like a dark cloud, menacing and heavy with unfulfilled promises. The day of departure arrived, a whirlwind of panic and last-minute packing, clothes bundled haphazardly, and posters peeling from the walls as if trying to cling to their rightful place. Leela's mother, a beacon of organized chaos, was barking orders while juggling a teetering tower of cardboard boxes that threatened to topple over, resembling a real-life game of Jenga gone wrong. The scent of pine and dust wafted around her, mixing with the citrusy perfume of Leela's anxiety, making her stomach churn like a washing machine stuck on spin cycle. Each folded shirt and disheveled toy carried echoes of laughter. And I'll never forget you's promises that felt more like distant echoes in a cave than solemn vows. In that fraught moment, Leela had the oddest realization. Moving was just like flipping to a new season of her favorite show, full of characters, but increasingly devoid of the charm that sparked her joy in the first 5 episodes. As the family car rolled down the familiar gravel path, Leela felt a pang of grief sharper than any cartoon villain threat. Not just for Oliver, who was standing there, waving with a brave face but quivering heart, but for the very essence of what her world had been. The willows seemed to weep with her, their drooping branches swaying as if creating a farewell lullaby, a melancholic tune that would stay with her long after they had left. The world outside whizzed by, a blur of trees morphing into houses and shops fighting for air in the cityscape, splashed with colors Leela couldn't quite identify. The sounds of her new town echoed like a foreign language. Honks, distant sirens, and the murmur of people blending into one chaotic symphony, casting her head into a dizzy spin. A strange form of excitement masked beneath layers of dread. It was like entering a video game where the rules had shifted and the terrain was unfamiliar, daring her to conquer this new world ahead, while she longed for the simple days of swings and secret forts. In the weeks that followed, the pulse of Windmere began to throb in Leela's ears, a ceaseless drum of new life, of opportunity yet to be embraced. But even as she attempted to acclimate, the inkling of loss never truly faded. It lingered in quiet moments, like that one sock that always goes missing in the dryer. Oliver became a part of her consciousness, a ghost of laughter echoing through the hallways of her memory, reminding her with each smile of the simpler days. No amount of buttered popcorn and superhero movies could erase the feeling of being adrift, like a sailboat caught in a tempest without a rudder. In her heart, Leela knew this chapter was just starting, and somewhere, hidden between the shadows, lay the promise that both change and friendship could grow like wildflowers if only nurtured with kindness and hope. As dusk unfurled its silken shawl over Eldernook, Leela and Oliver found refuge beneath the spirited branches of the ancient willows, their leafy fingers swaying like a gentle conductor, guiding a soft melody. A soft breeze, perfumed with the scent of fresh earth and blooming honeysuckle, carried the whispers of summer's end, a bittersweet serenade only the two friends could hear. Here, in their sacred grove, everything felt exaggeratedly grand, like they were the last two kids on earth, untouchable and buoyed by the magic of childhood. I promise we'll scour the skies for the same stars, no matter where we are, Leela exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with mischief, like she'd just hatched a master plan to evade adulthood's grip. Oliver chuckled, his heart tugging at the absurdity of making cosmic commitments when school was looming over them like a dark cloud. But somehow, it felt right. Their friendship deserved a grand gesture. After all, that's when the weight of it, the distance, the changes, and that unavoidable tick-tock of time seeped in, slipping into their conversation like a shadow in the fading light. They had their dreams laid out like a treasure map, with bold marks for the adventures to come, the secret treehouse they'd build, the summer they'd bike to the edge of the universe, or the hopes of becoming rock stars in a town that barely knew what a concert was. Just don't forget me when you're famous, Leela teased, her laughter echoing through the empty air like the mischievous giggles of dolls come to life, even as a tiny knot of dread nestled in her stomach. The laughter masked the tremors of uncertainty that threatened to unravel them. This was the magic of childhood. Yet its unraveling felt painfully imminent, like the last slice of cake at a birthday party disappearing too soon. Around them, the world softened as evening crept in, wrapping everything in a dusky haze that made even the mundane seem enchanted. The fireflies began their nightly dance, flickering like errant stars lost between the branches, each flash igniting a memory of simpler times. Leela stretched her fingers towards the glowing insects, imagining she could catch one, use its light to ward off the dark unknowns that lay ahead. What if you visit me? She wondered aloud, half serious, half hoping to cast a spell that would ensure their friendship could survive the fierce winds of change. Oliver's response came wrapped in a teasing tone. I'll bring pizza, and we'll binge-watch every series on Netflix. Or at least the good ones. It was a jest born from comfort, a hollow layer of hope that would peel away when the reality of distance set in. But as they leaned back against the sturdy roots of the willow, their laughter slowed, and the comfortable silence enveloped them like a thick quilt stitched with memories. The rustle of leaves and the distant gurgle of the creek echoed, and for a moment it felt like time had paused, wrapped around them in a warm embrace. Yet what the children couldn't shake was the palpable anxiety slinking in at the edges, coiling around their hearts like the creeping vines time always seemed to leave in its wake. Leela could feel her insides knotting, that slight churning of the stomach signaling a deeper understanding that this evening marked an end, even more than the fading light. Let's promise we won't let the world get too loud, she finally murmured, a plea against the tide of inevitability threatening to sweep them apart. The irony was rich, like a Sunday cartoon drawing characters closer, even as the credits rolled on summer's final chapter. With an air of finality, they exchanged solemn nods and sticky pinky promises, sticky enough to catch whatever dreams lay hidden within those whispered hopes. Emerging from the comforting cocoon of childhood, they shared a look that said much more than words ever could, an agreement to carry forth the embers of their friendship into whatever new frontier awaited them. As the last gazes of sunlight slipped beneath the horizon, and twilight unfurled its calming glow, they stood in the warm stillness, wrapped in a tapestry of laughter, dreams, and the bittersweet acknowledgement of their own youth fading. The world outside Eldernook would soon beckon, with its siren songs of responsibility. But tonight, they were still safe, cocooned in the memories they created by the willows. And so, with hearts racing beneath the fading light, They held on to that fleeting moment, unaware of how the relentless march of time would twist and twine their paths in ways they could only dream of, like twisting smoke rising into the evening air. As darkness fell over Eldernook, the rain lashed against the thatched roofs like 1,000 tiny drummers caught in an offbeat rhythm. Leela sat on the edge of her new bed, the damp wallpaper curling around her like a disgruntled cat. The air smelled of wet earth and faintly of wood smoke, a stark contrast to the flowery scents of Windmere. Here, she felt both trapped and adrift, as if the storm outside were rattling the very bones of her being. Each thunderclap sent shivers down her spine, echoing her inner turmoil. How had she ended up in this sleepy town, far from the vibrant heart of her old village, where laughter danced on the wind like confetti on a breezy day? Leela closed her eyes, hoping to summon memories of Oliver, the boy-turned man whose laughter rang like church bells in her mind. She remembered their shared dreams on the riverbank, where they'd spun tales of adventure and daring escapades, all woven together with silken threads of promise. But now, reality had delivered a cruel blow. Those tales were just that, dreams, floated away like dandelion seeds. The storm outside seemed to mirror her heart, a tempest of longing, as she felt the sting of regret sharper than any frigid gust of wind. In that moment, she pictured Oliver, his tousled hair illuminated by moonlight, and she could almost hear him whispering through the thunder, "Chase your dreams, Leela. Don't bury them," like some rugged sage in a cheesy movie. As the storm raged, she took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the scent of fresh rain mingling with dampness, and the faint musk of the aging wood around her. It was then she realized how deeply her dreams were entwined with Oliver's. Their unspoken promises hung in the air, thick as the humidity, as she instinctively clutched the locket around her neck, its cool metal steadying her chaotic thoughts. It felt like an anchor in her stormy sea of uncertainty, reminding her of the roots she might be abandoning. An unexpected wave of rebellion surged through her. What if she didn't have to settle for ordinary when she could chase the extraordinary? A dangerous idea, reckless like a catapult in a kingdom run by the cautious. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows as if trying to punctuate her epiphany. Perhaps Windmere was not the end, but rather a strange, unwelcome interlude in what was meant to be the grand performance of her life. With every crash of lightning, Leela felt the bricks of resignation peeling away, revealing the opportunities lurking beneath. She envisioned her journey back to Eldernook, and swooping into Oliver's life, reigniting dreams that had simmered down to embers in their absence. How she would parade through that quaint village in a blaze of courage, like a character in a big-budget movie, resplendent and determined, shaking off the sleepy dust of everyday existence. In that whirlwind of resolve, Leela made her decision, the kind that sent shockwaves through her very core. The storm outside, once a harbinger of fear, became a herald of change, whipping her into an exhilarating frenzy. She could almost hear the echo of 100 inspiring movie soundtracks blaring as she envisioned her triumphant return. A stormy hero's journey with plot twists as wild as the weather. And so, under the shadow of the tempest, Leela vowed to reclaim her dreams and the bonds woven with Oliver. After all, sometimes it takes a night of reckoning to reveal the dawn of a new adventure, where forgotten promises take flight on the back of a raging storm. The moment Leela stepped back into Eldernook, it was as if the air itself conspired to welcome her home, wrapping her in the sweet scent of honeysuckle and the distant laughter of children. The shadows were long as the sun dipped behind the hills, casting a golden glow that would make any Instagram filter look like a pale imitation. She could almost hear the ancient willows whispering secrets, their leaves rustling like the pages of a forgotten book, urging her to come closer, urging her to reconnect with a past that felt like a dream itself. Memories danced through her mind like fireflies, elusive and flickering. But there was one she longed to seize. Oliver, her perennially scruffy partner in adventure, the keeper of their shared secrets. Was he still the same boy who would challenge her to race, only to trip over his own feet? The thought conjured a smile, both nostalgic and tinged with disbelief at how quickly the years had flown by since they last played together in the meadows of youth. Their reunion felt like the climactic scene of one of those overly sentimental rom-coms where the camera spins and the world narrows down to just the two of them. Leela found Oliver lounging against the old oak tree, his hair tousled and his eyes sparkling with mischief, as if he'd just been caught in the act of a particularly daring adventure. With each step, her heart thumped in rhythm to the rustle of leaves, echoing the sweet yet painful anticipation of moments long lost, but never forgotten. When their eyes met, time seemed to screech to a halt, the gentle rustle of nature providing a soundtrack to their unspoken words. "Wow, you've changed," joked Oliver, gesturing dramatically to his own collection of sprouting beard hairs, which Leela swore bit back at her as she stepped closer. Her laughter bubbled over, light and carefree, erasing the years in a single moment of shared joy. As they settled down under the sprawling oak, the world around them hushed, crickets chirping like an enthusiastic backup band as they shared stories that wove their lives back together again. They laughed over their childhood mischiefs, from overripe tomatoes hurled at unsuspecting passers-by to tangled fishing lines that threatened not only their catch, but their sanity. With every tale told, they rediscovered the alchemy that had once turned their ordinary days into extraordinary memories, crafted from the very fabric of time. Despite the changes that life had sculpted on their faces and filled in the gaps of their lives, Leela could feel the essence of their friendship bubbling beneath the surface, a fire kept alive by the embers of familiarity. It danced between them like flickering starlight, a signal that while they had ventured down different paths, their hearts still hummed the same melody. Yet just below the surface of their laughter lay an undercurrent of irony, a gentle reminder that their childhood dreams had drifted away like leaves on a river. Leela couldn't help but chuckle at the ridiculousness of it all. These two once aspiring adventurers, now grown-ups, discussing the semantics of mortgages and work-life balance, as if they had stumbled into a gripping episode of the Great British Bake Off, sans the baking prowess. But as they reminisced beneath the twilight sky, a truth emerged like dawn breaking. Their dreams, while altered, were not lost. They were simply waiting for the right moment to be reclaimed, like a favorite sweater tucked away in a forgotten corner, ready to keep them warm once more. And so, with each heartfelt confession, they lit the way for the hopes they once held dear, allowing the gentle twilight of their youth to guide them home again. As night draped its soft quilt over Eldernook, Leela felt a surge of warmth radiate from her core, the intimacy of their bond casting aside the chill of doubt. With Oliver at her side, she sensed the possibilities blooming like wildflowers in spring, unconfined by the rigid expectations of adulthood. Together, they stood at the edge of a new horizon, where laughter, old dreams, and faint ambitions converged in a kaleidoscope of hope. The air was thick with the perfume of earth and dew, mingling with the electric thrill of rekindled friendship and the myriad of stories yet to be told. They knew in their hearts that ordinary days were the canvas upon which they could paint the extraordinary. And as the stars peeked out one by one, they whispered promises of gentle dreams yet to come. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting golden hues across Eldrin Hollow, the village transformed into a canvas of possibility. Long shadows flitted across the cobblestone streets like the playful spirits of yesteryears, urging the villagers to pause their mundane tasks and listen. Alara stood atop the grassy knoll, her auburn hair dancing in the cool breeze, eyes wide with dreams that splashed color against the dull monochrome of routine. In her mind's eye, she painted landscapes of bright suns and swirling skies, worlds teeming with abandoned hopes and secret longings. The air smelled of damp earth and wildflowers, as if the village itself shared a collective sigh, whispering stories like a grandmother recounting bedtime tales to a child eager for adventure. Beside Alara, Cedric shuffled his well-worn notebook, the pages filled with the ink of his fleeting thoughts. He was a poet in disguise, scribbling observations of the lives, unfurling around them, the old man in the market, fumbling with his wares, the children playing a raucous game of tag that could rival any episode of Survivor, Eldrin Hollow. Each life was a stanza, each moment an unintended rhyme, and while Cedric's words flowed like a gentle brook, he feared they would vanish like steam from a forgotten cup of tea. It's like capturing fog, Alara, he mused, half joking. The moment it's grasped, it slips right through your fingers, leaving you with nothing but chill and a sense of longing for warmth. As the evening deepened, the whispers of forgotten tales enveloped the duo, wrapping them in an eerie yet familiar embrace, like a favorite old sweater that had seen better days. They wandered into the heart of the village, where ancient stones stood like sentinels, bearing witness to the laughter and tears of generations. Alara's fingertips traced the cool, rough texture of the stones, and she could almost hear their voices, a choir of memories singing in harmony with the crackling leaves underfoot. Cedric caught snippets of treacherous romances and long-lost friendships embedded in the whispers, and his pen danced across the paper as he captured the essence of Eldrin Hollow's melancholy charm. Together, they breathed life into the faded dreams of the village, committed to resurrecting the tales of those who had faded into the background like shadows beneath the boughs of old trees. Yet in their fervor, the duo was blissfully unaware that the shadows they had given life to were not mere vestiges of the past. Eldrin Hollow had a darker underbelly, a stifling tension simmering just beneath its picturesque facade. Rumors circled like hungry vultures, suggesting that not all abandoned dreams were noble. Some were tainted with bitterness and regret. They could practically hear Michael Myers's theme song echoing ominously in their minds as they pondered the very real potential for drama lurking behind every creaky door. Alara couldn't help but feel a thrill, a sense of delicious danger, as they ventured deeper into the unexplored realms of the gathering darkness. As twilight settled around them like a gauzy shroud, their hearts beat in synchrony with the pulse of Eldrin Hollow. It was as if the village itself had turned its gaze upon them, urging them onward as they peeled back the layers of time. With each step, they glimpsed the faint glimmer of forgotten dreams flickering back to life, shimmering like fireflies at dusk. Alara imagined their own names etched in the annals of the village's history, companions to those whose stories were waiting to be shared. And as the first stars bravely pierced the fabric of night, silence enveloped Eldrin Hollow, promising that this adventure, This exploration of shadows would leave indelible marks on their wandering souls. Alara and Cedric wandered through Eldrin Hollow as if stepping into a faded photograph where every cobblestone whispered forgotten promises. The thick air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and ancient wood, while the wind danced around them like a playful spirit ready to share secrets. They found themselves in the remains of the village marketplace, once a buzzing hive of life, now reduced to crumbling stalls and scattered memories. The vibrant colors of ripe fruits and spices seemed to echo faintly in their minds, reminiscent of a time when laughter filled the air and villagers bartered eagerly, rather than avoided eye contact like a cat delivering a hairball. It was here that the past began to rise, coiling around them like a beleaguered ghost, reluctant to let go of its place in the world, begging for recognition of the stories that deserved to be unearthed once more. Guided by Meles, a gnarled figure with a voice softer than a dying autumn leaf, Alara's heart rumbled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Meles, who seemed to have one foot in the past and another in the realm of the absurd, beckoned them to listen closely. Each ghostly murmur that drifted through the air spoke of longing and regret, like a sad playlist on repeat, haunting the village while the living went about their daily business. Cedric chuckled nervously, wondering if they had stepped into a low-budget horror flick, where every creak and rustle promised a jump scare that would send them sprinting back to safety. But this was a different kind of horror, a persistent ache for what once was, woven into the very fabric of Eldrin Hollow, demanding attention and respect like a drama queen seeking the spotlight. As they embarked on this eerie quest to unravel the village's hidden layers, a forgotten dream floated to the surface, one belonging to a young baker who had envisioned a bread that could bring people together. Instead, ashes filled her oven one fateful night, snuffing out her dreams amid the smoke and despair. The scent of burnt crusts still lingered in the air, like a persistent reminder of what could have been, and Alara could almost taste the bitterness of lost opportunities. Can you imagine? She mused, a wry smile creeping onto her face. If only we could have those epic bake-offs like in the Great British Bake Off, where everyone's dreams rise. Instead, here we are with cold ghosts, lying about gluten-free options. Cedric nodded, following the trail of other souls who had once illuminated the shadows of this marketplace with their grand ambitions. But not all the essence of the past felt like a warm hug. Some were sharp, brimming with sorrow and pain. Alara's fingers brushed against a weather-worn sign that had once marked a dance hall, where laughter and music flowed like the finest mead. A tragic love story unfolded as they listened to a ghostly duo recount. how promises made on the dance floor had evaporated before dawn, leaving behind echoes of late-night heartbreak. It's like one of those cheesy rom-coms where the leads never say what they feel, and then bam. Suddenly, everyone's crying in the rain, Cedric noted, a hint of irony seasoning his voice. The irony struck harder here in Eldrin Hollow. The villagers had let their dreams wither like wilted flowers, leaving only the thorns of regret to pierce their memories. As twilight settled over Eldrin Hollow, Alara and Cedric felt the weight of those hidden echoes settle in their chests, reminding them that dreams unspoken could become shackles of despair. With each story unraveled, the ghosts of the past grew more tangible, swirling around them as if inviting these intrepid explorers to break the silence that had silenced them for too long. There existed a bittersweet irony that the memories forgotten had more life than the living, clinging to silence like a guilty secret. This village, drowned in the burden of neglect and sorrow, craved the warmth of rekindled dreams, like an old dog yearning for a flicker of joy. Equally grave and hopeful, the burden of forgotten lives weighed heavily in the air, a call to remember, to act, and to give breath once more to the hushed ambitions rusting away in the shadows. In the heart of Eldin Hollow, where the quaint cottages still wore the dust of centuries, Alara and Cedric set a fire in the old community hall, not just of wood, but of ambition and hope. The scent of pine mingled with the crisp autumn air as they strung twinkling lights that flickered like the dreams the villagers had long forgotten. It'll be like a reunion of spirits, but definitely with less ghostly moaning, Cedric quipped, chuckling as he climbed down from a rickety ladder. Yet behind their laughter lay an undercurrent of anxiety, thick enough to cut with a rusty sword. Many villagers clung to their shadows like children to fearsome bedtime stories, terrified of what tales might tumble from their lips should the night invite them out into the light. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the village, an unsettling silence hung in the air like the calm before a storm, or that moment in a horror movie when you just know something's about to pop out from behind the bushes. The evening's gathering creaked under the weight of unspoken histories, and whispers flitted among the townsfolk like the restless spirits of a few too many ill-fated romances. Despite their initial enthusiasm, doubt crept in, faces fell like freshly baked bread. A once rising promise collapsed into a deflated dough of reluctance. What if they bring up the time I danced like a drunken stork at the harvest festival? Grumbled Mrs. Wren, clutching her shawl tighter as she played with her knuckles, casting guilty sidelong glances at the hall. Suddenly, as if the heavens themselves decided to join the growing tension, dark clouds rolled in with the elegance of a thundering squadron of angry penguins. The first raindrop crashed onto the cobblestone path like a whispering ghost, and soon a symphony of stormy percussion filled the air. Pattering drums mingled with shouts of startled chickens fleeing their coops. Cedric glanced at Alara, his eyes wide as saucers. "You know what they say, love can weather any storm," he joked, though a crack of lightning illuminated his nervous grin. The wind howled outside, an old wolf's lament that echoed the villagers' fear of exposing the vulnerabilities entombed in their hearts. Still, undeterred by the tempest outside, Alara threw open the doors of the hall, inviting the swirling winds to dance with them. The flickering candles cast shadows that wove through the stories like threads in a tapestry, urging the villagers to share their truths, to embrace the forgotten fragments of their lives. Pens and quills lay waiting on the tables, a challenge to perhaps write a new chapter, for, as one wise bard once sang, "You gotta fight for your right to powarty." Yet, amidst the sparkling laughter and tentative jokes, a weighty silence sometimes clung to the air, as each soul grappled with the ghosts they had tucked away, heartaches, dreams deferred, and moments they wished never to see the light of day. As the storm raged outside, voices began to rise within, a chorus of murmurs that mixed relief with trepidation. Story after story flowed, revealing the villagers' hidden dreams and regrets like cherished letters from a long-lost friend. With each confession, the room warmed, casting away the chill of past shadows, while their shadows danced vibrantly against the walls. A stark reminder that memories, like ink, cannot be washed away so easily. Alara marveled at how the storm had forged a bond among the hearts. Perhaps it was the tempest that stirred the deepest corners of fear and longing, coaxing laughter and tears alike. In that cozy community hall, they discovered an irrevocable truth. The weight they carried, whether old or new, could be lightened when shared. Just as stories are often best told over a warm mug of cider and togetherness, the storm raged like a wild beast, its howls clawing at the windows and thunder rumbling like a disgruntled giant. Yet, undeterred by the tempest's furious symphony, Alara and Cedric stood resolute in the town square, the flickering lantern overhead casting shadows that danced like panic-stricken fireflies. With the wind whipping around them, their voices pierced the cacophony, drawing the scattered villagers from their homes. It was a marvelous assembly of soaked socks and bedraggled hair, standing together under the lantern's warm glow as they gazed at the dew. Faces illuminated by both fear and curiosity. To think, they gathered not for gossip or market discussions, but to confront the invisible chains binding them to forgotten dreams and stories that had long been silenced. As Alara and Cedric began to speak, the icy grip of solitude melted away, replaced by an unexpected warmth that seemed to snuggle its way into the corners of their hearts. The rain drummed a steady rhythm, an uninvited percussionist to the gathering. But with every shared word, the villagers started to transform. Hesitation melting into bravery like snow under the spring sun. One by one, souls emerged from the shadows, their voices trembling but fierce, recounting tales that had been tucked away like dusty relics. The air thickened with nostalgia, seasoned with bittersweet laughter and salty tears, each person adding their own sprinkle of magic to the emerging tapestry of community. In that gathering, they realized, in sharing, they were lighting tiny beacons in the darkness, a constellation of forgotten dreams lighting the stormy night. As the lantern flickered with a stubborn tenacity, casting faceless giants upon the walls, irony wrapped itself softly around them. Here stood a village once frayed by isolation, having spent years like hermits in their own homes, now sharing dreams sweeter than freshly baked pie. While the storm raged on outside, barn doors clinked like pinball machines, tales spun prouder than a rooster at dawn, each voice rising like an unexpected crescendo in a forgotten symphony. Old Martha, with her hair reminiscent of a tumbleweed, regaled them with stories of her childhood crush on the school's one-eyed janitor, a match made in pure chaos. Much like a rom-com gone awry, laughter erupted, a joyful cacophony that challenged the storm's fury, erasing the shadows where hidden beliefs resided. Then came the tears, rolling down weathered cheeks like the storm's own raindrops, washing away the bitterness that had pooled over the years. Young Thomas spoke of dreams too big for his little legs, plans of adventures that ebbed and flowed like the waves of the sea, all tugged back by the anchor of doubt. Simone the baker recounted a dire ambition to craft the world's fluffiest souffle. She imagined it so perfect that it could float, perhaps even escape the confines of her quaint kitchen. Who knew that a humble baked good held the power to inspire admiration, gain respect, or, at the very least, score a free coffee from the cranky barista down the street. And so, with each tear and chuckle shared in that square, hearts knitted together, unraveling darkness and stitching its fabric into something radiant, a quilt of belonging. As the first rays of dawn crept through the clouds, the storm began to subside, retreating almost shyly, like a defeated villain fated to become a memory. Alara and Cedric looked around, their hearts swelling with pride. For what had begun as a mere gathering had blossomed into an unbreakable bond, a community reborn from the clutches of despair. The path stretched ahead, no longer dark and treacherous, but paved with understanding and the beginnings of reconciliation. Like a map scribbled on the back of a napkin, they would navigate this new terrain together, armed with courage and a sense of humor that would rival a sitcom duo. In that little town square, under the light of a flickering lantern, they had ignited the flicker of hope, proof that even in darkness, dreams have a way of shimmering through. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over Eldrin Hollow, the village seemed to awaken from a long slumber. Like a sleepy giant stirring in its bed, every corner echoed with the vibrant tales of forgotten lives, swirling on the wings of a gentle breeze. Alara, a visionary with paint-stained hands and an imagination that could outshine a supernova, gathered up her brushes, ready to transform the village's dullest wall into a canvas of dreams, armed with colors as bright as a summer's day and as deep as a moonlit night. She began to weave the narratives shared at the gathering into a mural that would sing of hope and resilience, a masterpiece that would shout louder than a pager in a quiet library. The scent of fresh paint mixed with the warm air, intoxicating and inviting, coaxed villagers out of their houses, their curiosity piqued like cats on the prowl. Not far from where Alara danced with colors, Cedric sat at an old wooden table, the kind that begged for secrets to be spilled and stories to be penned. He wore his editor's hat figuratively, of course, while furiously scribbling down poems that poured out like a rushing river after a storm. Each piece captured the spirit of Eldrin Hollow, breathing life into forgotten voices through meticulously crafted rhymes. Who knew that a village with a reputation for eerie silence could spring forth with such lyrical ferocity? As he tapped the pen against the parchment in rhythm to an invisible beat, it became clear that Cedric's task was not mere publication. It was an act of defiance against silence, akin to lighting fireworks in a graveyard. If graveyards kept poetry books, that is,